This is seven snakes coming out of a human being's head. These are all yogic representations of the rising of the Kundalini. This is in South America a few thousand years ago. This is an art form of a depiction of somebody using a mudra like this and initiating someone. There is lore in South America where they're talking about people from another wherever landed there some 6,000–7,000 years ago, and suddenly tribes who were living without any engineering capabilities, their highest level of engineering was a leather tent which is called a tepi. From there, suddenly they started building constructions, stone constructions which have even lasted till today, which are masterpieces of engineering. So they say the gods came from elsewhere and taught them this. In the lore, this is how it is. And they brought in mathematics, they brought in engineering, geometry and other dimensions, and suddenly those who were living in tents suddenly started building constructions which are… For thousands of years we've been talking about it. You should see the descriptions in Mahabharata where when Vayu takes Kunti Devi, he takes her across the world and for the first time she sees and realizes that the planet is round, and she talks about it, and she couldn't believe that actually you can go round and come back. So they're talking about Vayu as the god of winds who took her around. She realized that the planet is round. There are beautiful representations of more sophisticated manifestation of yogic culture, particularly in Middle East or West Asia as we call it here. Particularly this particular stone that you're seeing is the Guru Puja stone. When I went to Baalbek, which is part of the Phoenician temple which was built now in Lebanon, when I happened to visit this place about 10 years ago, the moment I saw this stone, which is the Guru Puja stone, with 16 offerings, with room for 16 offerings. Even today when we do Guru Puja, it is called as Shodashopachara. That means 16 ways of inviting a guru, 16 ways of making it happen. This is a classic representation of Guru Puja stone. You will find an exactly similar stone in Uttar Kashi, you will find these stones in Benares, you will find these stones in southern India, in various temples. The triangle, the manifestation of the stone in the way it is done is geometrically 100% correct. This cannot be done by anybody other than somebody who is steeped in yogic sciences. And this must be about 4,500 to 5,000 years old intact even today in Lebanon. Lebanese children in their schools study, and they know from history that Indian sculptors, Indian labor, Indian elephants came to work on the Phoenician temples. If all these people went, if the labor went, the sculptors went and the elephants went, how would the yogis not be there? They would be the forerunners of this whole process. And you will see in Baalbek temple there's another image of lotuses in the ceiling. Obviously this is a clear Indian art sneaking into Phoenician temple, because the sculptors from India the first thing that they learn is to make a lotus. It's the simplest manifestation of sculpting, and they put it in the ceiling of these Phoenician temples almost 4,000 to 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. The people in that region would have definitely not seen a lotus because no such thing exists there, but you will see lotuses hanging from the ceiling. This is a lotus inside Anahata symbol in the ceiling of the Phoenician temple, the Sun Temple in Lebanon, which is called as Baalbek. This is a fantastic temple, it's a must-see for anybody. If you ever happen to be in that region, it is something that one must see. It is a phenomenal manifestation of human will as to how… and the inspiration that is taken from a divine contact. Once somebody is touched by something of the beyond, your own earning of the bread or making your own name and fame doesn't arise. You want to create something that manifests itself and functions beyond yourself. So these ancient temples are a manifestation of that. You see the symbol, the yogic symbols of Anahata and the blossoming of the flower, it is across the planet in many representations in the form of sculpture. Once again, we must remember, only that which was carved on stone and that which endured the ravages of time you see, but so much of it, which is in practice, will never be seen unless like that skeletal representation where someone died in a yogic posture. If that happens only, maybe there will be proof of yoga in North America after 10,000 years. So these are all various symbolisms, I will not go into this. This is Jordan. You can see a manifestation of the linga forms and the crescent moon and snakes. This is very important, this is a three-headed bull. Before… the first one is in Sumeria, but we have these things in Indus Valley. Whoever fixes these dates, on what basis, I do not know. We will go by that. And this is about 5,000 years where three-headed bull is a representation of the same process of the Ida, Pingala and the Sushumna, represented as a bull, later on evolved, or parallelly it also evolved into three-headed snakes or three snakes, these three-headed bulls. And there are wonderful stories going back in many ways. For those of you who are familiar, or if you happen to attend the Leela program about the way Krishna represented yoga, there's a beautiful story about Krishna taming the bull. There is a whole lot of stories going back into history where this was… today it is being labeled as bull jumping, where people conquering the bull was not only a macho manifestation in a society, but it was also considered as a spiritual pursuit, that if you conquer the bull within you, that means you conquer your animal nature, that is when you are delivered. So these two things are very much there in Krishna's life of he taming a bull and then dancing upon the hood of a snake. So these two things are a symbolic representation of how he tamed the animal nature within himself and arrived at a place where he's on top of a snake's hood, representing that he's reached… the snake has risen within him, so the man has risen. That is what these two stories are trying to say. Here is a beautiful manifestation of a linga and a yogic symbol of 7 dimensions of life peeking out and the human figure in between. These are different art forms trying to say the same thing. So this is from the Indus Valley, okay, this is in the Indian region. Here is a 2,000-year-old Egyptian snake with a crescent on top of it. And here what you see is the snake, which is the Linga Bhairavi temple. This is the symbol of infinity. They representing infinite nature or cosmic arousal of energy, which is also possible within an individual human being. So, this is called as the Ouroboros in today's language. This happened a few years ago. I was in conversation with a physicist, and we had 6–7 hours of non-stop unbroken conversation. And I was trying to demonstrate to him, and if you become meditative or if you get settled in a certain way within yourself, if you hold one's hand, let's say 9 to 12 inches above my head right now, you can clearly feel the energy moving in this form. And I said, this is a dimension which represents you cross the physical limitations. If you hold your hand on top of anybody's head, please don't go about experimenting like this and proving something about someone else. But you will see the energy will always move this way. The moment it has hit this form, that means he's crossed the physical limitations within himself. When I said this, and crossing physical limitations also means moving from finite to infinite, it is on that day that I I logically connected. He said, this physicist told me that this is the symbol we use for the expression of the infinite. I said, well, this is from the yogic culture, only someone who has known this within himself could have used that. So the number system, the zero and the infinite, both came from the yogic culture. Today when you say shunya, which is the zero, nobody could have thought of a zero except one who has experienced that sense of emptiness and the vastness of emptiness. When we say emptiness, the word emptiness or nothingness naturally brings psychologically a negative connotation. But emptiness means limitlessness, nothingness means limitlessness, nothingness also means infinite nature. That can only be arrived at experientially, not logically, not by thought, but only by experience. So, it is not an accident that both zero and the infinite comes from the yogic basis, and that has become the basis of all modern sciences today. Everything that you do is between zero and infinite, but crossing these two boundaries is what is considered ultimate yoga, because true union happens only when you transcend the numbers. Numbers means finite nature. Only when you cross this, there is a true union. Then only you can say something is in a state of yoga. This is a coiled snake. This is 1,000 years ago. When you enter Spanda Hall in the yoga center, we have a very similar representation. Everybody has to walk over this, because Spanda literally means a state of primordial energies. Today the same cultures are very fearful and giving negative images of snakes, but the same cultures at a certain time worshipped snakes, and because of a certain campaign, snake has become evil. But even that campaign is not a complete success, because it contradicts itself. For example, if you take the story of Adam and Eve, there was a dumb couple who did not know what to do, and a snake arrived and it initiated life. Someone who initiates life upon this planet, it's up to you whether you call him the agent of the divine or call him the agent of the devil. If you are for life, you would definitely call him as the agent of the divine. If you are anti-life, then you would call him as the agent of the devil. Here are our beautiful snakes, cascading snakes at the entrance of Dhyanlinga temple. This is the Linga Bhairavi someday, maybe when I stop traveling around, when I sit down in place, the science behind this we can experientially manifest for those who are interested as to how all sounds are leading towards this, are rooted in this dimension. That is what the previous image was about. These are South American manifestations of someone trying to build a rudimentary dhyana linga. This is very interesting. Geographically, today in the country that we call as Peru, it's called Chavin. This is a classic… I will be what to say? It will be too arrogant for me to say it's a classic reproduction of Dhyanalinga site. Dhyanalinga is a classic reproduction of this one. We were not aware of this at that time, but now it's really fantastic to see exactly in a similar kind of magnetic and other kind of forces which work on the planet. Someone tried to establish a very similar setup of an energy center. This is the plan from the top, but you will see so many things which are very similar. You will see it's very, very similar in construction to the Dhyanalinga complex in terms of the plan, the way we did the approaches as to how it should be to make it experientially possible for people who enter the temple. When we built Dhyanalinga, we were not aware of these things, but today people have researched into these things and found out. This is 7 snakes coming out of a human being's head. These are all yogic representations of the rising of the Kundalini. This is in South America a few thousand years ago. This is an art form of a depiction of somebody using a mudra like this and initiating someone. These are classic images of the Guru-Shishya Parampara in its own form in those cultures. This is I don't know if you can call it a pyramid, it's not a pyramid really. It's somewhere in Central America. So, on the spring equinox, it leaves an image like a coil, like a snake going up with 7 forms of bends going up. Only on that one day it happens. The equinox is a tremendous possibility. In some way, the whole effort has been to create forms which will help a human being to attain to his fullest form. So, various types of mechanisms were created. Some are very sophisticated, some are rudimentary in nature, but the effort has been there all over the world. So here we are today seeing the impact of yogic systems across the planet. Whatever these images and stuff we're talking about is only what is left of in form of physical things, but the impact that would have happened, for example, right now, for most of you who are in North America or in United States, for a few thousand people who are doing Isha Yoga, let's say, or a few million people across the world who are doing Isha Yoga, let's say after 10,000 years, where is the proof that you did yoga? There may be still a few stones left in Dhyanalinga. In case we build something in Tennessee, there may be few stones left there. So somebody will say after 10,000 years, in 2 different places, somebody seemed to be doing some yoga. But a few millions people are doing and many other millions of people are doing different forms of yoga, all that will not be left. So similarly, when you see one image like this, there must have been a whole population or a generation of people or many generations of people doing this, otherwise the continuity of it for the last 20,000 years, manifesting like this would not happen unless it was an active culture across the world and which has been systematically wiped out in the last couple of thousand years for whatever reasons. There is lore in South America where they are talking about people from another wherever landed there some 6,000–7,000 years ago, and suddenly tribes who were living without any engineering capabilities, their highest level of engineering was a leather tent which is called a tepi. From there, suddenly they started building constructions, stone constructions which have even lasted till today, which are masterpieces of engineering. So they say the gods came from elsewhere and taught them this. In the lore, this is how it is. I want you to just imagine, 6,000 years ago, if somebody came floating on an ocean, on whatever they floated upon, and landed in your land. Suppose you were in Indiana and somebody came floating 6,000 years ago, when you had not imagined anything beyond the land on which you exist, they definitely would look like gods who came from elsewhere. And they brought in mathematics, they brought in engineering, geometry and other dimensions, and suddenly those who were living in tents suddenly started building constructions which do not… you cannot… culture cannot evolve from a rudimentary tent which is just put up with a piece of leather and stick to a sophisticated construction in just a short span of time. It will take a whole lot of time for people to evolve that, unless an input came from elsewhere. The suggestions that the input came from elsewhere, which you can call it gods or you can say they are Saptarishis or wherever they came from, yes, definitely they came from elsewhere. Everything suggests they could have only come from the east and not from anywhere else. So you could assume, if you wish, if it assists your Indian ego, you can say, these people came from India. Not Indiana, I mean India. So if it is… because this would be very presumptuous to say, yes, this is Saptarishis, but a lot of things indicate it could be them. It would be very presumptuous for anybody to say, yes, this is so, because there is no such thing. But in my experience, within myself, I know these seven sages reached out to the whole world, and because that was Adiyogi's intention and that's how they went, and there are more, what to say, believable stories. At the time of Mahabharata, Arjuna decides to… see, we must understand this one thing, that if you go through the Indian lore, if you go as far back as 5,000–6,000 years ago, very clearly they're talking about the planet being round. In fact, even today, in the local languages in India, when we say geography, we say bhugol. Bhugol means study of a globe. The very word is suggesting that the earth is round. So, this is not like whatever a few hundred years ago Galileo invented that… discovered that earth is round. For thousands of years we've been talking about it. You should see the descriptions in Mahabharata where when Vayu takes Kunti Devi, he takes her across the world and for the first time she sees and realizes that the planet is round, and she talks about it, and she couldn't believe that actually you can go round and come back. So they're talking about Vayu as the god of winds who took her around. She realized that the planet is round. There are any number of things to suggest that people were traveling or people did travel to those parts of the world. And also, if you go back further, 18,000 or 20,000 BC, during the Ice Age, largely these continents were connected, that people could have even walked across, not necessarily gone by… travelled by the sea, but they could have walked across because land masses was connected one way or the other. So it is possible. If you look at the knowledge that suddenly they exhibited, we can say definitely it is so, but we don't have exact proof to say it is so.